I always tell people that the first time I had sex was when I was 15 and a half, but that wasn't really the first time. A new girl joins our grade 8 class. She is living with foster parents just down the street from me. She comes from down in the city and tells us innocent country bumpkins all kinds of fascinating stories. Stories that we find hard to believe, even though we kind of want to. She talks about sex and tells us she has had 2 abortions already. Of course, we're fascinated. We enjoy the excitement she adds to our lives. I start hanging out with her a lot. I visit her at her foster home, and she tells me how badly she's treated there. She shows me her only bra that is in tatters and tells me that her foster parents refused to buy her any new clothes. One Sunday afternoon, she suggests that we meet up with Luke, the best looking guy in our class. Of course, I agree. We end up meeting up with Luke and his friend Melvin, who is his total opposite, short and not attractive at all. We end up in a hayloft, and while Linda and Luke proceed to have sex, Melvin and I look awkwardly at each other. Afterwards, Linda and I realize that we're going to be late getting home and we'll both be in trouble. She suggests we run away. Instead, always up for an adventure, I agree. We spend that night in her mother's basement in the North End after managing to break in unnoticed. We steal some food from the freezer and leave the next morning. We decide that we'll go to California because that's the place to be in 1964. We smoke cigarette butts we find on the ground and put our thumbs out to get a ride. 2 rather overweight older guys, although they were probably only in their 30s or 40s, stop and we get in. We tell them we're going to California. But instead of heading down the QEW towards the border, they drive up the mountain to a desolate place. One guy gets in the back seat with Linda, and they tell me to get in the front. I don't know what else to do, so I do. He didn't undress me, just told me to pull my underwear aside while he pulled out his penis from under his fat belly. He just barely had it in when he comes already. I still remember the feeling of the slimy semen between my legs. He hands me a rag and tells me to wipe myself so I won't get pregnant. After Linda and the other guy are done, they drive us back to where they had picked us up. I have felt shame about this for over 50 years. Now I realize that this was rape. For all those years, I never saw it as rape because I hadn't said no or tried to stop him. I didn't know what else to do, so I just let it happen. I didn't have the awareness at the time. How could I? I was only 13 years old. I did have enough awareness to know I didn't want that to ever happen again. So I convinced Linda that instead of hitchhiking, we should walk to California. By evening, we've gotten as far as Stony Creek. We find a 24-hour laundromat, and we wait for everyone to leave so we can settle in for the night. By now, I'm starting to get worried about how my parents must be feeling. I decide I'll call them just to let them know that I'm okay, but I won't say anything else. I deposit a dime in the payphone. I hear the phone ringing, and then my father's voice. I hear the anguish in his voice and my mother sobbing in the background. They ask me where I am. In this moment, I realize I just want to go home. So I tell them where I am, and they arrange to come and get me. Linda and I agree that she will not come back with me. She doesn't have a loving family to go back to, just a foster home where they don't seem to care about her. We say our goodbyes, and I wait for my parents to pick me up. My parents are relieved to have me back, but also angry that I ran away. I find out that they had reported me missing to the police, that my picture has been on the Channel 11 news. My father had taken the day off of work, and my punishment is that I have to pay him back the full day's wages that he lost because of me. When I return to school, everyone asks about my adventure and where Linda is now. I don't tell them much. The police arrive at school one day and ask me what I know of where Linda might be. I don't have much to tell them either. However, a few weeks later, she is found living with her father up north. She's brought back to Hamilton to live in a group home for girls and is brought back to our school. Although I stay friendly with Linda, I keep my distance from her now. I know that I'm not strong enough to resist if she should again suggest something that I know I shouldn't and now really don't want to do. I feel bad for her, as I also realize that she needs friends and acceptance. But I realize that I need to take care of myself, and I can only do that by keeping my distance. Years later, I meet Linda at a travel agency where she is working. She tells me that she was adopted by one of the teachers from our school as a result of us running away together. And I realize that what for me has been a bad memory, for her changed her life for the better.